Hello, everybody. How's it going? Joel here with Manchester News. So it's 11:30 here out on the Pacific Coast here in Canada. Just waiting for Big Steve from the Big Six podcast to join here. We're going to be talking everything Man City. We're talking about all the news that went down yesterday concerning Man City. A lot of big news surrounding one particular person. And we're going to get into that. I hadn't anticipated we were going to talk about that, but he's been such a significant part of Manchester City. We can't not talk about that. We'll have some time, hopefully, later to talk about their matchup with Leicester City coming up this weekend, following a week where there was an international break, and how that can sort of affect the rhythm and the role that Manchester City has been on. So we're going to get into that right away here with Big Steve from the Big Six podcast. And then time permitting, we'll hopefully might have some time to chat about their FA Cup draw, which we've known for about a week or so is going to be Chelsea. So an interesting matchup there. So I'm going to bring in Steve right now, and let's get this going. Give us a second here. And
hello.
Hey, Steve, how's it going?
I'm good, mate. Are you?
I'm doing really good, thanks.
Good.
So I was just saying, I know we chatted a couple of days ago just in regards to talking about the among other things, the draw with Chelsea in the FA Cup last week. But obviously, a lot has happened since yesterday, and obviously we can't not talk about the news concerning Sergio Aguero. So why don't we get into that first? I'm not particularly surprised. I wasn't surprised when I heard the news. The timing was a little bit curious to me about the announcement, but what was going through your mind yesterday when you heard all the reports and then the confirmation that Sergio Aguero is going to leave at the end of the season?
I think probably a lot of Man City fans have thought in the back of their mind that it might happen, but you just don't want it to happen. So we've pushed it to the back of our heads. Yesterday when it came out, I don't know. It was a bit of a shock. I spoke to a lot of people today, and everyone's a bit downhearted, really. Aguero's a massive part of Manchester City. He's been there for 10 years. We've celebrated the Aguero moment. I mean, the guy's brought so much joy to the city of Manchester. It's like losing one of our own, if that makes sense. And even the young kids I speak to are a bit upset. I've had a lot of messages off people. I mean, it's all right, people saying, getting upset about footballers and that, but, the guy is iconic to Manchester City and the history and that moment he gave us in the Etihad with a last-minute kick will never be repeated, I don't think. So, it's like losing someone close to you. But we've lost a few big players over the last few years in... like you say, like Yaya Toure, David Silva, Vincent Kompany and stuff, Zabaleta, which are all emotional. But this just feels a little bit different, and it doesn't feel right that we can't say goodbye proper. You know what I mean? So I think that's really disappointing from my point of view.
Well, why do you think they chose a time like this where Man City is still going after the FA Cup? That's still all for the taking right now. They're still very much in the thick of the Champions League, which might be arguably the toughest trophy for them to potentially still win at this point. There's still the Carabao Cup final. The Premier League, I think we've talked about, is pretty well in hand at this point. But why did they choose to make this announcement right now? Or yesterday, I should say.
I just think, that if they wouldn't have made the announcement, the longer Sergio sits on the bench, the more fans are going to get disgruntled, and the more people are going to be asking why. Why is he not playing? Why is he not this? If they've released this now, okay, the Man City fans then think if he doesn't play, it's like, okay, well, fair enough. He's leaving at the end of the season. Pep's he's planning without him. So I think it's a bit of a masterstroke from the management side to just take the pressure off a little bit, maybe give a bit of an understanding. Because I'll be honest with you, he's not been at the races. He's been injured. He's came in for a few games. He's looked a little bit off the pace. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a masterstroke. I think they're just getting it in people's heads that he's not going to be there. But the only saving grace for me is knowing how well Manchester City's run and knowing how well Pep Guardiola plans things. There can only be a big signing on the way to replace him.
Well, and I was just going to get to that, but I'm going to get to one thing before that. You talked about the fact that he's spent pretty much the entire season either on the bench or in isolation because of illnesses. He had to recover from his knee surgery heading into this season. Then he had some contact with people from COVID, and we know that we have to stay isolated when it comes to that stuff. Did his injuries this season and illnesses, do you think that is kind of helped settle the management team's decision into like, okay, we can't bring him back because of the amount of injuries he's had in his age?
I just think we're playing that well. The team's doing that well. The system, the false nine, everything's working perfect. I think if he somehow bowed down to pressure and tried to squeeze Sergio in there and we lost a few games or we dropped big games, I think, you can't be sentimental with these things. When you're at the business end of the season and you've got everything to play for, you can't try and squeeze somebody in that's not quite right for the system. So I think Pep's managed it well. I'm sure Sergio's frustrated, and I'm sure he is, but I'm sure when he's looking from the outside in, he realises the team. If we were struggling to score goals and he's sat on the bench and he's not getting on, then I'm sure everyone would be really, really pissed off. But the fact is, we're doing the business on the pitch and, we haven't needed him. So, I think it's just the injury and everything. I think it's just come at a time for him. And if he can bow out with a few trophies, listen, in my ideal world, if he could score the winning goal in the Champions League final and send us off, it'd be a fairy tale, man. Roy of the Rovers stuff.
And speaking of a business standpoint, obviously that's just the nature of football nowadays, particularly with a club like Manchester City and given their finances right now. But Aguero, I think, makes somewhere in the ballpark of about £250,000 a week, somewhere around 250,000, somewhere around there per week. How much does losing that salary help Man City to get some big strikers? Because there's a lot of big, high-profile strikers that are going to be on the market. We've talked about Haaland, we've talked about Messi, we talked about Harry Kane, Kylian Mbappe is also a big name that's been talked about. How much does losing this salary help Man City to recruit another big-name striker this summer?
I'll be honest. I mean, I think the money's there anyway. I think the squad. I think we've lost Yaya Toure and players like that who are on a lot more money. But we have a wage structure. Whether we have to revise that and we have to increase a few people's wages to get people in, that might be an option. But yeah, definitely a big chunk of the wages there is coming off. So, I mean, the name in Manchester at the minute on everyone's lips is Haaland. Obviously, he just looks ideal for us. I don't think Mbappe would leave Paris, I'll be honest. I think it's going to be a big battle for Haaland. I think we get a little bit of a nudge in front because of his dad and the connections with the club. And if I'm Haaland looking for a new club, Manchester City, it's going to be tough following Aguero. But, I mean, you look at the team and the way we play football and the chances we create, the guy, it's perfect for him. If you're a striker, you want to go in that team. If you look at certain other teams and they're playing very defensive, sitting in their own half, trying to get on the counter-attack, that's not going to suit him. You're going to want to go to a team that plays expansive football like Manchester City. You're going to want to go with the best coach in the world in Pep Guardiola. And you're going to want to go to a fan base that's just lost a hero and they're looking for a new hero. So I think it's made for him. It's made for him.
So where do you think... I put this poll out there, and I prefaced it yesterday on my Instagram by saying it's a stupid question. And I still think it's a stupid question, but just for the sake of, fans debating and stuff like that, I thought it might be a fun question. To me, there's no question Aguero is the greatest striker Manchester City has ever seen. What do you think is Aguero's legacy with Man City?
I just think over 10 years, 10 trophies, to score the winning goal in the last kick of the match, to snatch the title from your biggest rivals when all look lost is a typical Man City thing to do. It's probably the greatest Premier League moment. I mean, I was there in that stadium that day, and I followed that team home, away, Europe that season, every match, never missed one game. And I got to the last game of the season, and we walk into the stadium. There's a guy outside the stadium selling scarves saying champions. I said, mate, we're not champions yet. He said, listen, QPR at home. I said, mate, it's Manchester City. Trust me, mate, we ain't champions yet. We gets in the ground, the atmosphere is buzzing, but not buzzing, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Anyway, when the game's unfolding, it's just typical Man City for me. And there was a point at 2-0 down, just before Dzeko scored. I sat on my seat, and my friend was stood up next to me, and I looked at him and I said, Paul, I said, I can't give this football club any more than I've given it in the last 20 years. I can't do it to me, mate. I felt ill, right? And then Dzeko scored. I never celebrated. I didn't celebrate. I just thought it's another one of them. They're teasing us, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I remember we were going on the attack, and my phone text message went, and my friend is a Man United supporter, and he was at Sunderland. And I looked down. This is true. I looked down, and the message said, "We are the champions." That's what he put in capital letters. And I looked up. Just as I looked up, Balotelli passed to Aguero. Aguero scored. Wow. And then the scenes in that stand, you've never seen anything like it. We were on the floor. There were grown men crying. There was women crying. It made me feel ill. I was nearly sick. And then when we started to come round and think, wow, we've just won the league, man, and all that. I mean, I've got goosebumps on my arms now just even talking about it. Look, there's Aguero. Aguero's name is on my arm there, Aguero. And it was unbelievable. So for somebody to give you that moment in your life, it ranks for me alongside the birth of my kids. It's a memory that I'll tell to my grandkids. So the legacy Sergio leaves is that every single Man City fan around the world will tell you where they was that day Sergio Aguero put that ball in that net.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking from somebody who has only visited Manchester one time, I visited a couple of years ago. I took in actually the one of their opening fixtures of the Premier League season that year to Watford. It was a pretty historic one. They ended up winning 8-0 in that game. But it was, I think, like the second or third game of the season. What stood out to me, and I've been to my share of football matches around Europe in my time, is people were lined up the streets. Like, I remember the road to the Etihad was closed off. There wasn't like traffic going back and forth. And I was like, okay, this is a Saturday afternoon game. Where else would you see that kind of enthusiasm and fans just walking right through just like a middle of a highway and stuff like that? Like, you wouldn't see that I didn't see that in Brazil when I was at the World Cup in 2014. I was in France when France won the World Cup in 2018. We saw amazing scenes over there. I didn't see anything quite like that. And it only really got until later on in the competition when it was all for the taking. So that was a pretty incredible memory. And it showed me the kind of passion and enthusiasm that City fans have for their team, that they'll come out like that just for a game that probably doesn't mean too much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, the English fans are passionate about the team. It's, City fans have been through the fair share of downs, and we stuck by the team when it was really, really low, and we stuck by them. You know what I mean? And we were averaging attendance 30,000 in League Two. So we've always been there. It's been hard because your neighbours are winning trophies on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
But they don't win so much now. So karma has came round and bitten them on the arse. So at the end of the day, the Man City fans deserve it, mate. We're having a good time at the minute.
So where would you rank? We've talked, obviously, if people think of iconic moments in Sergio Aguero's time at Man City, they're obviously going to talk about the moment you were sharing just recently now, which is the winning goal to beat QPR to win the title. Is that the one moment that you think of when you think of Aguero, or do you have another moment during his time? Because that moment won them the league title, but he's also scored 257 goals. So he's got to have some other standout moments.
Oh yeah, he scored. He scored in semi-finals and finals. His debut was outstanding. He came off the bench and he scored 2 goals. The goal at Napoli away in the Champions League when he broke the record was good. Yeah, he scored against Man United a few times. He scored at Old Trafford when he jinked through a few of them, put it in the top corner. There's loads of goals that stand out. I saw a highlight reel of him today that someone put together, and it's quite impressive. It's quite impressive to see. He'll always be remembered for that moment, but he's got to be remembered for being one of the best strikers in the Premier League, and he's also got to be remembered for being an overall nice guy. It's for a little Argentinian to come to the UK, to come to Manchester where it rains, to stay there for 10 years, to win 10 trophies and to leave a hero. It is something that not many players do.
Is there, since you brought it up, is there a better striker that has played in the Premier League in the last 10 years? I know that we've had our share of different Golden Boot winners. I believe Harry Kane has won the Golden Boot a couple of times. I know Jamie Vardy won it last year. I'm pretty sure right at the start of when Aguero signed, Carlos Tevez had just come off of winning the Golden Boot for Man City around that time. So we've had our share of Mohamed Salah. Is Aguero the best striker in the Premier League in the last decade?
I think goal to games ratio, I think he took over Thierry Henry. I mean, Thierry Henry was unbelievable for Arsenal. And, you know, they always talk about Henry as the best and Aguero as the best. I've had a few debates on shows. Obviously, I'm going to stick with my man because he's my man. But if somebody said to me it was Thierry Henry, I wouldn't disagree with him. You know what I mean? I think Thierry Henry did something similar. He came to Arsenal. He was a left winger. He started to Wenger did his magic on him, and obviously he was a legend. Golden Boot sometimes can be misleading because you know, you can win a Golden Boot and your team not being the best because there's no pressure on you. You're going out there, you're playing football. But when you win the Golden Boot and you're in a top side and you've got you're in the big games, the ones that mean the most, and you're still scoring the goals. That's where you can judge strikers. But he'll definitely go down as one of the best strikers of all time. Definitely for me.
Where do you see Sergio Aguero? I wrote a piece in Manchester News a few weeks ago suggesting that you know, Juventus could be a potential landing spot for him. I know Cristiano Ronaldo is probably on his way out there, and they might need another veteran presence there. I know he's got ties with Atletico Madrid, where he played before Man City, and then there's maybe that South American connection with Luis Suarez. You talked last time about, you know, maybe him wanting to come home and play somewhere in Argentina. Where do you think is, well, I guess first off, is there enough big clubs out there that are going to want a Sergio Aguero next season? And where do you think he's best suited to play moving forward?
I mean, if he gets the hunger back and he wants to do it, he can go anywhere he wants. You know what I mean? Anyone's going to take a Sergio Aguero on a free transfer. It's not a kind of gamble because Sergio Aguero only 50% is better than a lot of strikers. So I don't think he'll have a shortage of people queuing up for his signature. But I've got a feeling that he's going to go to Barcelona. And I've got a feeling he's going to go to Barcelona and Messi's going to stay at Barcelona with him. That's what I've just got this feeling. It started to creep about a few weeks ago when I think they changed president and the president mentioned Aguero's name. And I thought there's some legs in this. And maybe the president of Barcelona's pulled off a masterstroke, getting Aguero, Messi's best mate, to come and sign, and maybe getting Messi to sign. And maybe they're going to have one last dance together in Spain.
Yeah, that's actually, I hadn't thought about Barcelona, but that does make a lot of sense just in the grand scheme of things. I'm pretty sure Dembele has been doing really well. He's probably coming to the Premier League. I have a feeling by the end of this season. Yeah, there's the connection with Messi. Certainly, didn't Barcelona's president threaten to resign as well last year in order to keep Messi at the club? They're definitely doing just about everything to try to make Messi happy, despite the fact that Messi clearly...
I think he's
right.
gone now, that guy. I think he's gone.
Right.
I think they've had another election. And the way it works in Spain, they have so many candidates. They all put what they're going to do on the table, and the fans vote for who they want. And I'm sure they voted for Laporte again. I think he's back there, and I think he mentioned Aguero. So I can see legs in it now. I mean, I was convinced, and I got told by people within the club that the Messi deal, they were getting told inside the club the Messi deal was done. But as you know, in football, things can change rapid. So I expect him to go to Barcelona, me.
So does the fact that Sergio Aguero the fact that he's going to be on his way out of Man City very soon, does that close the door of any potential like Lionel Messi signing with Man City even without Sergio Aguero there?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose it could happen, but I just think the best of friends. They talk all the time. They've mentioned about playing together. I just think you've got. I just think without Sergio there, the percentage gets lower. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's no way we're letting Sergio Aguero go without replacement. Whoever they've decided on, he's definitely coming. It's got to be 100% done for me.
So it took 78 years. I was reading this earlier today before coming on with you. It was 78 years before Sergio Aguero broke the Man City record for all-time goals. Eric Brook had it for 78 years at Manchester City. How long do you think the current record held by Sergio Aguero, no matter how many goals he scores from here on out, let's just pretend for argument's sake that he's not going to get another goal this season, that he's going to stay at 257 goals. How long do you think it'll take for a Man City player in the future to break that?
Well, to be honest, loyalty in football these days is very rare. So for somebody to stay at a club for 10 years, you've got to have a chance of doing it. Obviously, in hindsight, somebody like Haaland, if he came to Man City and stayed for 10 years, you think he'd blow that away. But you just never know in football. You just don't know how it's going to work. I mean, one thing is with Man City, they sign these players and we look after them so well that there's not many leave. I mean, Leroy Sané was the only one I can think of who was peak and wanted to go. Which is very rare. They seem to come, they get looked after by the club, they don't want to go anywhere else. And, we need that now. We need somebody to come in and say, right, you're part of the project, you're here for life, you don't need to go anywhere else. You can win everything you need here, so stay with the club. And I do believe that's what will happen. I do believe that's what will happen.
Is there anybody on Man City's team at the moment who you think is either one of the current strikers right now or somebody within the youth ranks right now who might have the potential to slot in and play the same role that Sergio Aguero played? Not necessarily match his totals or anything like that, because I think that's just asking too much of a striker to just come in and fill those shoes right away with somebody with the likes of Aguero. But is there somebody who can play the same role that Sergio Aguero has played for City in the last 10 years?
I mean, we've got a young kid, Delap. These people got high hopes for him, but he's a different kettle of fish. He's a young lad. He's a bit raw. He's a big lad as well. You don't think he's got the pace, but he's got a lot of power. He would definitely give us a different option as a striker, but he's not in the mould of Aguero. Aguero's one of a kind. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. I mean, you only have to look at them videos when he made his debut in Argentina at 15-year-old. And it's like, if you're 15-year-old and you're playing in the Argentinian league and scoring goals, you're special, man. And I just think Manchester City, the way we are and the way the machine is moving with Pep, we're taking a vital cog out of it. We need to replace it with a vital cog. We can't go throwing unproven people in there, or we can't go throwing people in there that are 50-50, like, oh, he might do it, or he might not, because we haven't got the time. When you're top of the league and when you're winning these trophies, you don't have the time to blood these strikers. If you're mid-table, you can throw 3 or 4 in there and you can try them out and see how it goes. But when you're at the top level and you're competing at the top level, you've got to make the right decision Same happened with Diaz at the back. We got it wrong with Kompany the other year. We thought we'd be okay. We wasn't. But they did their own work, and we got Diaz in, and he slotted in perfect. And I hope that we can do the same with Aguero. But there's only one name for me, the Haaland. I can't see past him. I look at him, I just think he's made for us, and I can't see past him.
This might be an unfair question again, but this is obviously something that journalists and fans are always going to talk about until the end of time, I feel like. And the reason I think it's unfair is because everybody on the football pitch has a variety of different roles, and it's hard to say like one is more valuable than the other. But where would you, for the sake of like just having some banter, where would you rank Sergio Aguero in terms of all-time Manchester City greats?
For me, he's the greatest. For me, he's. I know there's Colin Bell from my dad's generation, and my dad will tell you that Kevin De Bruyne is the closest thing to Colin. But David Silva was amazing. But for me, I've always lent towards Sergio. I don't know why. I just think he's always for me, he's the greatest that I've ever seen, you know. And I've seen some absolute garbage, and I've seen some brilliant. But for me, just everything the guy stands for, the records he's broke, everything like that. For me, he goes down as the greatest for me, you know. And I think a lot of younger generation City fans would probably say the same. But yeah, he's the greatest Man City player for me. That's why he's getting a statue with the boys.
Yeah, exactly. I think that pretty much like settles it right there. And, you know, we, as good as it's hard to rank, like you mentioned, Colin Bell and some of those from back then, because we didn't grow up around that time. So it's hard to know just from hearsay from other historians and people like that. But yeah, seeing Aguero in person, watching Aguero on TV, I haven't seen a player who is more valuable to the resurgence, because it had been, 44 years before that 2011-12 triumph. It had been 44 years since they had won a top flight campaign, right? Yeah. So
the thing is with him as well, though, in a modern game which is played with greed and played with a lot of disrespect towards clubs from players, you've never heard a bad story about him. You've never heard anything about him. He's never held the club to ransom. He's never ever asked for more money. He's never ever said, I want to sign for Real Madrid. He's never done any of that. He's been perfectly happy in Manchester. And in his personal life, his son, he's not lives in Manchester. He comes and visits him very rare. His girlfriend at the time, Maradona's daughter, she left. He's had a few girlfriends in between, but, you know, he's still done the business. You know what I mean? He's not let it take him down. He's not wanted to go for the sun. He's not wanted to float around in the swimming pool somewhere. He's knuckled down in the snow, the sleet, the rain, and you know, the guy's a legend.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point, because footballers and athletes, I think in general, from the public, get a bit of a bad reputation. Perhaps it's justified, perhaps it's not. That's open to people's opinion. But, you know, there's always, like, you know, I'm sure a lot of people thought of Messi differently when he asked for an out with the club, when there's like all these different salary demands and players, money going up. I was even pretty surprised that Aguero was only making 250,000 a week. That's not chunk change, obviously, but that seems rather low for what he's given out. So that to me shows that he is, you know, grateful for even just like getting a club to play for. And that's the kind of guy that probably, does that add to his likability factor, the fact that he has this sort of just gratefulness towards a club and willingness to even play for probably less money than he's worth?
I think what City did a few years ago, they restructured players' contracts, so they dropped the weekly wage, but they increased the years. Does that make sense? So that they were guaranteed X, Y, and Z. I think it was something to do with financial fair play and the way he structured it as well. So I believe with his bonuses and with image rights and things, I think you'll probably find he's on some good money. And, you know, I'd probably Sheikh Mansour might have bought him a yacht somewhere or something like that. You never know, you know what I mean? But look, the guy's happy, man. What you get with a lot of South American players, I find, is the passion for the game and not the money. You get kids that play for Manchester City youth team now, the 21-year-old, they've got a £100,000 car. They're dripping in gold, diamonds and earrings. They've never won a trophy.
No.
Yeah, you get them on that pitch, they're falling all over the place, they're bouncing around in nightclubs, they think they've made it because they're a millionaire at 21. And then you get a guy like Aguero, Tevez was the same, Zabaleta was the same, who would run through a brick wall. If you want him in the trenches and you need to dig deep in the game, they're there. And that's the difference for me with the modern day players. These South American, I've grown up dreaming of scoring goals in Europe and winning trophies, dreaming about it. And then you get our guys that they grow up entitled and they think, oh, all I need to do is get to my first contract and I've made it. Whereas Aguero is like, I need to win my first trophy and I've made it. And I think that's a mentality difference with South American players to the modern day European players, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. There's definitely, it just seems there's a lot of people who are spoon-fed a lot of things, and that just, when you're at that age, it can't help but just like make your ego gigantic, and then the hard work and the effort probably lacks a little bit after that. So, for sure.
There's a comment by Jade there. He's Jayden Braith. He's making an example there. He's a Dutch player at Manchester City who is well renowned for having a bit of an attitude, but the guy he's an immense talent. But we've sent him out on loan to Udinese in a minute, and I think he's the same. He'll pop up somewhere and he'll be a world beater, but I think his attitude stinks, to be honest.
Fair enough. Let's talk about an attitude it has to be like full speed ahead right now, and that's Manchester City's going into a week off from the international break. They're going in to play Leicester City, restarting their Premier League campaign again coming up this Saturday. First off, after a week or so off from the international break, how much of an impact do you think that's going to have? Because I feel like of all teams, a team that's been as hot as Man City has been right now, that's probably the last thing some of the players in Guardiola would want when you're into a routine and a rhythm like Man City has been, when they've been winning games on a consistent basis. Does an international break do anything to impact the hot streak that they've been on?
Yeah, it's always a worry when the players go flying around the world, especially at the minute. You've got COVID restrictions, you've got people being tested, so you hope everyone comes back safe. But like you said, the rhythm is key. And if you upset the rhythm, you see it a lot when teams go and play in Europe. They'll be doing well in the league, and then they'll have a Europa League game or a Champions League game, and then the game after that, they seem to be unsettled. I just think with City, we've just got to get everybody back fit. We've got to. Pep's going to obviously remind them how they're doing, and then we've just got to just go where we left off. It's a tough game against Leicester. They had a great result against Man United, so they're going to want to come at us. It's a free punch now. Every team we play now, it's a free punch. They know what we're about. They know how good we are. So if they get beat, it's just City's beat us. But if they beat us, it's big scalp. So I think Leicester's going to give it a go. Do I think they'll beat us? No. I think they'll come at us, and I think that'll be the downfall. I don't think we're going to make the mistake we did at the Etihad and go for them early doors and let them get us on the counter attack, because you've seen how that ended. It was bad. But yeah, I think we'll beat them. I think we'll win. Carry on where we left off.
Was that, I know this goes back a really long time because it was only the second game of the season, but was that the worst performance that you've seen Man City play this season up to this point? That game, that 5-2 game against Leicester?
Yeah, Man United at home didn't help because it was them. Tottenham, that wasn't pleasing on the eye. But yeah, Leicester. But I wouldn't say we played bad. I just think they just caught us on the break, and I think the centre back pairing that day was Garcia and Nathan Ake. Mm-hmm. So different kettle of fish. John Stones and Diaz and Cancelo and that this week. But no, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen again. You know, we know what we need to do now, and we need to get stuck in and get these games won and get that title wrapped up.
Is there any kind of a psychological boost? There's obviously critics and journalists will always break down different stats about like, oh, this team hasn't won at home in such and such amount of games, and oh, this team hasn't beaten this team in the last 5 fixtures, 10 fixtures. Does the result in the second game of the season give Leicester City any kind of a psychological edge over Manchester City heading into this weekend?
I don't think so. I think they're on a good run. Obviously, they beat Man United, so it was a great result for them. But when they look at Man City now compared to the second game of the season, you're dealing with a totally different animal. You know, they caught us cold, and they took advantage of it, and they won the game. Fair play to Leicester. But now we're on the back of an unbelievable run. We're dealing with everything that gets thrown in front of us. We've got a fully fit squad. It's definitely not the time they want to be playing us. Let's put it that way.
Was the first time around against Leicester City just a question of like, you know, the wrong people playing in defense that probably can't necessarily contend with the firepower of Leicester City, because Diaz hadn't signed just yet for Manchester City. Like you said, John Stones was out injured. Eric Garcia doesn't seem like he's got that much longer to go before he's on his way out of Man City soon anyways. Nathan Ake as well had a pretty tough beginning. What did they do wrong last time? Was it just a question of the wrong personnel, or was there something more to that loss?
I think that we were a little bit complacent, and I think that we thought we just had to turn up and take the game to Leicester, steamroll them out the way and move on. But we played right into their hands. They just soaked it up and caught us on the break. And like you say, I think once they started doing that and they were getting in behind us, I think we couldn't cope with it. And they beat us fair and square. And then I think it was the kick up the arse that we needed. You know what I mean? There were certain players that wasn't focusing on the job in hand. They were getting carried away with it. And to be honest, it probably helped us because it was so early in the season, and because obviously Pep realised what he needed to do and what he needed to change. And obviously the rest is history. Look where we are now.
Now, when you think of Leicester City, the number one player that probably comes to mind, even though he's had his struggles lately, is Jamie Vardy. But he won the Golden Boot last year. He hasn't scored, I believe, in his last 8 games at Leicester City. Is he just lacking in confidence, do you think? Or is it something more? Have teams figured out how to defend Jamie Vardy? And how does City have to do it?
I think Vardy thrives in games where when people show Leicester no respect and they go for Leicester and they push high up the pitch, it's prime Vardy, because they get them balls in behind and he's got that much pace. He's in and round the back and he gets them chances, he scores. When teams sit deep and they don't want to commit and they're tight and these 2 banks of 4, I think it's tough for Vardy to make them runs round the back. You know what I mean? I don't think he gets that space. I think Jamie Vardy's a better player when he's got space to run into, so he can take 2 or 3 touches and get ahead of the defender and finish. When it's all compact in and around the box, you very rarely see him on the edge of the box curling one in the top corner or something like that. You know, you very rarely see that from Vardy, but you know, he's a great player. And they're a good side, and not a lot of people give Leicester credit for where they've come this season. You know what I mean? They're a good side. They've recruited well. They used the Maguire money well. They've got a good manager in Brendan Rodgers. They play a good, attractive football, and they've had a great season. And they're going to be a tough game.
And James in the chat is mentioning what I was going to touch on as well, which is like, yeah, Jamie Vardy's had his struggles lately. He hasn't scored in quite some time for Leicester City, which is a rare sight for the Foxes to see. But somebody who has scored quite a bit for Leicester City and really stepped up in his absence has been Iheanacho. He's got 7 goals in his last 4 competitive matches for Leicester City. What is most impressive when you look at a player like him?
Well, obviously he was ex-City, so we know all about him. He was a good player at City. He just wasn't quite at our level. I believe we got good money for him, and I believe we've got a buyback clause on him. So I'm glad that he's doing well. It's good to see him doing well. It's good to see him scoring against Man United as well. So yeah, I wish him all the best. He seems a nice guy, and he's always been a good talent in Iheanacho. He's always been decent.
One thing that we look at when I look at this teams, and I was looking at some of the stats about their past games, is that they're usually pretty high scoring affairs. In the last 11 matchups, from what I looked up, in all competitions between the Foxes and Man City, there have been three or more goals have been scored between these sides in the last 11 games together. Do you expect this to be a pretty high-scoring affair, given the firepower on both sides?
Yeah, I just think City don't have to force the game. We're clear in the league, and we're coming back off an international break. So maybe just soak it up a little bit and let them come at us, and maybe reverse what they did to us. Maybe let them come at us, get a bit confident, and catch them on the break. Yeah, I mean, it has the potential to be an open game between both sides, like you say, both top-scoring sides. So I definitely think there's going to be goals in it. And I definitely think if Vardy's going to score against anyone, he's going to score against us. But I just think we've got too much for them. I think we'll beat them.
Now, most times when you play a side like Leicester City, I would think you're going to put
line up your best players at every position, because it's a side like Leicester City. They're right there. They're probably going to get a Champions League spot. I don't think there's any doubt they'll get one of the top 3 spots in the Champions League for next season. But the other fact is that Manchester City has Borussia Dortmund only 3 days after their matchup with Leicester City on Saturday. How much does that, and the fact that the Champions League is sort of what the number one thing they're probably going after, does that change Guardiola's tactics and lineup for Saturday?
You never know with Pep. You never know. Obviously, we can afford a slip up in the Premier League because obviously the lead we've got, but we can't afford to slip up in that Champions League. So I don't know how he's going to play it. I hope he don't overthink it. I expect a few changes, but, I'm a great believer. I like to think, I know it's easy said and done, I'm a great believer in you play your best team, and if you get 2 or 3 goals ahead, then bring the players off you on a rest. But I don't know if he's going to do that. I really don't know. I'm looking forward to see what he does, to be honest. This is the time of the season where Pep likes to throw a few surprises, so we'll see.
And the great thing, and perhaps like one of the biggest luxuries that I don't know a lot of managers in European football can boast right now, is that it's hard for me to tell who is like the A side for Manchester City, because you can make an argument that there could be at least 15 or 16 guys on the team that could be like in the starting lineup in a Champions League final. Riyad Mahrez, Stones and Diaz partnership has been amazing. Ederson leads the league in clean sheets. Riyad Mahrez, Joao Cancelo, I think, has been probably the best at creating chances at the back in the Premier League this season. There's Ilkay Gundogan and De Bruyne, Gabriel Jesus. Really, I feel the only people that really haven't necessarily made a case for themselves as to why they deserve a spot in the starting 11 are the 2 of the most hotly recruited players, the 2 of their biggest signings over the summer last year, which was Ake and Ferran Torres. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, Ake's injury record at Bournemouth, never got injured. He was ever present. He's signed for us this year, and he's been injured a few times. Ferran, I think Pep's just keeping him under wraps. He's not rushing him. He's not expecting too much for him. I think he's coming in. He's got to learn how to play in the system. He's got to learn of what Guardiola expects of him. But the signs we've seen of him, he's been good. And, you know, he's chipped in with his Champions League goals and stuff. So at the end of the day, you know, Ake and Torres, they can afford to have a quiet season in this Man City team because it's that good. You know what I mean?
Do you expect Sergio Aguero to get some more starts down the stretch, particularly in the Premier League, knowing that this is sort of his swan song pretty soon with Man City?
Yeah, I do. I think the closer to the end of the season, the business end of the season, where we need maybe 2 or 3 games to just seal it, I think you'll see Aguero, and I think you will see Aguero at weekend as well. I've got a feeling he's going to play him. And I think he's not going to play him against Dortmund. I think he's going to play him against Leicester. So, yeah, I expect him to make maybe the Carabao Cup final. Maybe he's captain, maybe. And then, obviously, if we wrap the league up, I think last game of the season, he'll be captain.
Do you have a prediction for this? What you think the score is going to be this Saturday?
I think it will be 2-1 City.
2-1 to Man City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, Steve, that's everything that I got for today. What do you got? What do you have going on? You have another podcast with the Big Six people coming up this week?
Yeah, we've got one Friday night, Big Six, on Turkish's channel at 10 o'clock. I think we'll be discussing the weekend's fixtures. Yeah, we had a quiz night on Monday, which was different. Somewhat different. But, yeah, it's a good show and people should check it out.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thanks for doing this. It was lots of fun. Let's do it again soon.
No problem, mate. Anytime. You take care, mate. See you later, Joel.
Cheers.
Bye.